Imagine being walled into a building or a room, knowing that your execution and death will be coming in the weeks and months as you are slowly starved and run out of resources. This was known as immurement, and there were many cases over the years of some unfortunate or sometimes brutal person being subjected to this, and they would succumb to their fate over a significant amount of time. This was also the case with the execution method of the oubliette, a small dungeon in which someone was left to rot and was simply forgotten. These ordeals were death sentences in themselves, and there was no chance of survival. But one other execution method in which someone was forced to face and contend with their demise was marooning, in which a victim was left on a deserted island or a piece of land, and they were then just forgotten. Welcome to the Fortress. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Marooning was the intentional abandonment of someone in either an uninhabited area where there was no resources, for example a desert island, or someone being left inside of a place where there was no escape. This was used on board of ships, and it has been sometimes attributed to have been a pirate method of execution. But this could have been used for crewmen who were involved in mutiny or uprising on board, and some captains could impose marooning as one of the most serious punishments, with someone dumped on a piece of land with no chance of survival. Usually a marooned victim was left on a deserted island or a piece of sandbank or bar at low tide. They would sometimes be given food and some water and a loaded pistol, so they could die by their own hand if they wanted to, as the ordeal was far too rough. Usually marooning ended in death, as survival was tough, especially as when the tides changed, there could be problems on the island which they were left on. But survival was possible if there was some fortune, such as a passing ship, and one case of this was of the Irish pirate Edward England. He was a feared pirate, however following a dispute on board a ship, England and 3 others were marooned just off the coast of Mauritius. They were not given good provisions, and were forced to scavenge for food and other resources, but together the men built a small boat or a raft, and they then managed to somehow get to the pirate haven of St. Augustine's Bay in Madagascar. This was seen as a huge feat of survival, and he managed to then live for some time from the charity of other pirates. As mentioned, it was mostly pirates who used this form of punishment or execution method, and it was deployed mostly during the 17th and 18th century, and some pirates even became known as marooners for the fact they used it so much. It was a method of execution which was free. It required no extra equipment, just a boat to land relatively close for someone to be dropped off. The execution method was written into the pirate codes of a number of prominent captains. Inside Bartholomew Roberts' pirate code, he wrote that he walked firmly up the steps, saying as he went up, every man to be called fairly in turn, by list, on board of prizes because, over and above their proper share, they were on these occasions allowed a shift of clothes, but if they defrauded the company to the value of $1 in plate, jewels or money, marooning was their punishment. If the robbery was only betwixt one another, they contented themselves with slitting the ears and noses of him who was guilty, and set him on shore, not in an uninhabited place, but somewhere where he was sure to encounter hardship. He also wrote, to desert the ship or their quarters in battle was punished with death or marooning. So it was used by Roberts as a serious punishment for the most serious of offences, and pirate John Phillips also included it in his code, saying that marooning rather than outright and instant execution would be a punishment for those men who ran away from the ships and refused to serve under him. One woman who suffered marooning was Marguerite de La Rocque, a noblewoman from France, and she was marooned for a number of years, and the Isle des Demons. This was off allegedly the east coast of Quebec, and she became the lover of a young man, but her relative, a privateer, was not happy with this, and he left Marguerite on the Isle of Demons. He thought Marguerite would succumb to her fate, and she was marooned with her lover and also a maidservant. She allegedly gave birth while she was on the island, but the child tragically died, as did her lover and her maidservant. Marguerite, it was claimed, survived by hunting wild animals, and was years later rescued by Basque fishermen, and she later returned to France after this, and she became a celebrity. Alexander Selkirk was a Scottish privateer who spent 4 years as a castaway following his marooning as his captain left him on an uninhabited island in the South Pacific Ocean. He was left on the island with a musket, a hatchet, a cooking pot, Bible, bedding, some clothes, and a knife which was generous, and on the island he ate lobsters and fished as he could. He was forced into the island by sea lions during mating season, and he also ate other animals to survive, as well as wild turnips and other trees and fruits. He managed to build 2 huts out of trees, but he did get injured as he fell from a cliff, chasing prey on foot. What saved Selkirk was his resourcefulness, and he even had to hide from other ships, Spanish vessels, as he knew he would be dead if they noticed him. He was saved on the 2nd of February 1709, as a privateering ship, led by William Dampier, rescued him, and he was overjoyed when he noticed the vessel. It was said that one may see the solitude and retirement from the world is not such an insufferable state of life as most men imagine, especially when people are fairly called or thrown into it unavoidably as this man was. He returned back to the privateering lifestyle after his ordeal, and there was a huge amount of attention in Britain about his fate, and Selkirk became a celebrity and was even given large amounts of plundered wealth to live on for the rest of his life. Some have claimed that Alexander Selkirk's life inspired Daniel Defoe's writing and the book of Robinson Crusoe. Leendert Hassenbock was a Dutch employee of the Dutch East India Company, and he was marooned as a punishment for sodomy. He kept a detailed diary during his time, and he was given a month's worth of water, a tent, some prayer books, clothes, and some seeds. He tried to find water on his island, but could not find a consistent supply, and he even drank the blood of different animals, and even his own urine. He was specifically left on Ascension Island, and there are 2 known sources of fresh water on there, but Hassenbock probably did not find them, and it's presumed he died at the end of 1724 on the island. Also, another marooned man was Seaman Robert Jeffrey. He was said to have stolen the midshipman's beer, and he was marooned on the island of Sombrero. He was picked up 8 days later, and a passing American ship rescued him, but his ordeal led to the court-martialing of the captain who did this. Marooning was a terrifying and barbaric experience for these men and women who were subjected to it. It was a death sentence and execution method, as the victims would have to contemplate with their ordeal, knowing that if they could not find food and water and a constant supply, then they would be wasting away and would be dead in just a matter of weeks. They also had to contend with a lack of shelter and build this too, but there were some examples of people managing to survive their ordeals through ingenuity, sheer luck, and being rescued at just the right time. Thanks for watching. To the Balltown channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.